And welcome to this Strategy, Finance and Performance Committee. I'll call on Sue to open with karakia.
Kia ora, tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ti wahu, tuia tātou ti tangata. Ki te kaupapa o te hui nei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei, Māori ora, ki te tātou katoa.
Thank you. And just housekeeping, we've got two members on Zoom. I think we've got Councillor Greening and Deputy Mayor Maru. Just screens off, microphones off, hands up if you want to speak. We've got nobody from outside today, so we don't have to go through that. I've got an apology from the Mayor for lateness. He was in transit when I saw him earlier. There's no change to the order of business, and we've got no public forum. And welcome to the table, Board Member Lusk and Board Member Dixon. Oh, yes, I will. So, someone like to move that we received the apology for the Mayor for lateness. Councillor Hume, seconded Councillor Kittermont. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right. So, as I said, any declarations of interest? None. And we've got the confirmation of the minutes. That's the first subject. So, the open minutes of the Strategy, Finance, Performance Committee held on the 21st of May to be confirmed as a true and correct record. Have I got a mover? Councillor Kittermont, seconded. Councillor Woods. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And then we've got the confidential minutes of that day, which we can do in open meeting. That's the only confidential piece that we have today. So it's the confidential minutes of the Strategy, Finance and Performance Committee held again on the 21st of May. True and correct record. I've got a mover, Councillor Fernyhough, and seconded. Did I see Councillor Gully? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now, we have a workshop to follow this, but it's been advertised for 1 o'clock, so we can't bring it forward if we finish early, which is unfortunate, but that's it is. Right, we've got 4 items today, and Ian Coombe is going to come forward. So the first item we've got is the adoption of the Wakefield Brightwater Catchment Management Plan. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Essentially, I'll take the report as read. I did want to emphasise that it's an urban catchment management plan, and there's a lot of issues on the periphery that I know are of high interest to the community. The rivers flooding, the gravel extraction from the rivers is obviously a hot topic. We've got Snowden's Bush on the edge, overflow from the pit viewer as well, and so well aware of all those peripheral issues to the urban catchment management plan, and I'll continue to work with the rivers team on the interaction between what the rivers team are doing and what the stormwater teams are doing to manage those issues the best we can. But the urban catchment management plan is not the place where we can address those issues. And with that sort of emphasis, is there any questions on the document?
Sure there is. Councillor McNamara.
Yep. So thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering how you want to do this, because I've sort of got a question on every page kind of thing. So I'm wondering if you want me to just work through it and then people interrupt when they have their questions come up.
Start with your questions, because you know the area very well.
All right. So page 17, we have a picture. On that picture, there's a date, May 2026. I'm just wondering what that date refers to.
I didn't print off a full copy of the document.
Unfortunately.
Yes. So I can't immediately answer that one, sorry.
Because if that date is supposed to be referring to the picture, then it's bollocks.
Is that... Yes, I'm sorry. if necessary, if we're going to have a whole lot of detailed questions about the
We're
document,
going to have a whole lot of detailed questions.
could I request an adjournment and I go print a copy of the document and then I'll be ready to answer those? Is that appropriate?
Look, we've got time. We'll take 10 minutes for you to print that, all right?
Apologies.
And in fact,
Here we are.
why don't we move to the next item and do the drug and alcohol policy? Well, Ian goes and does that. If Kat's here, so, and Dwayne's here, and do we need anyone else for the alcohol policy?
I've got subject matter experts as well.
All right. And I note in that we're looking for a hearings panel, and I am aware, I tapped the deputy mayor because he used to be our DLC chair. He is happy to chair that hearings panel. But over to you, Kat. Over to you, Kat. So,
Ready?
yep.
Okay. Kia ora koutou. So, as noted, the report that I'm presenting today is the draft local alcohol policy, and we are seeking your approval to consult using the special consultative procedure.
Yep.
The draft, the policy is something that we've had in place since 2014, and this is its second review. The draft policy sets out the same maximum trading hours as what has been in the current policy. However, the consultation questions have been drafted to consider the other options that were contemplated in the options analysis. In particular, we're asking for the community's views on setting maximum off-licence hours at some alternatives such as 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Some of the other key changes that we're proposing in this version of the policy is a presumption against new bottle stores within 100 metres of schools. That was something that was discussed at the workshop earlier in the year. We noted there was some hesitancy in the workshop about pulling this particular lever, mainly due to concern about potential unintended consequences and maybe not wanting to target local independent producers and craft type businesses. And so the mitigation for this is we've developed a new definition for bottle stores to exclude those types of businesses. It's also a matter of efficiency. If we put this out in the policy, in the draft policy to consult now, then we won't need to go and reconsult. Let's say if we don't have it in the policy, but we get a resounding view from the community that they want us to consider that, it's better that we include the detail in that now, and we can pull it back if needed, if we decide to go against it, but it's better to put it in the first place. And it's also something that reflects the community feedback that we've had so far. Some other changes that were proposed since the previous iteration of this policy are to include restrictions on buy now, pay later as a discretionary condition. It's something that can be applied on a case-by-case basis. There are some other minor discretionary conditions that we've also included, but I just want to flag that, as noted, discretionary conditions are something that happens case by case. It's something that the DLC can theoretically apply without it being listed in the LAP or even without having an LAP, but including these and listing them in the policy is a way of signalling to our applicants what may be required of them. It's more transparent and gives them a little more certainty when they're making their application. So we are requesting a hearing panel to be selected, and hearings are scheduled for the 18th of August. I'm happy to take any other questions that you may have.
I'll be looking for some volunteers for this. The Deputy Mayor has put his hand up, and it would be nice to have a representative, and I think Councillor Ellis is probably excluded because she's the current chair of the DLC committee. So, Councillor Newby, are you going to volunteer for that? because I'm going to do. I will be,
a direct invitation.
it does, because I will be chairing the community occupancy hearing. So we need some from different wards. So
Well,
is
and
there a
different
volunteer
opinions,
from
I
the
guess.
Waimea Mutri ward?
Yep, I'll go.
All right, so we'll propagate this. Councillor Noble.
Mike just not a volunteer.
No, well, you three. You're doing your hearing with me shortly, so
Well, on last man's standing.
who's going to,
I can sit, there you go, depending on the dates.
well, what's the date? It's the 18th, isn't it?
You want to go?
Yes, hearings are the
Councillor
18th of
McNamara has
August.
volunteered,
August.
and we probably need a rural person either from Golden Bay or Murchison. What have you got? 2 pubs? Yeah, I'm yeah,
Hardly huge.
I know. Yeah, Deputy Mayor Maru was offered to chair it. I spoke to him last week, or early this week. All right, good. Well, either Golden Bay or rural, reckon someone. So, no. Again, they haven't got a heap of pubs. They've got lots of restaurants. Oh, yeah. Right. Deputy Mayor Maru, you've got a comment or a question?
Thank you, through the chair. I'm happy to move, Kit, in terms of the consultation, and just noting the sensitive site in terms of the school. If that sort of indication had been in our last LAP, it would have saved the 4-day hearing in Mapua and several thousands of dollars. So I think it's fair to highlight that with the changes in the definition of that for new applicants that are applying, both so that they understand the unlikelihoodness and to save that time. I had some questions around listing the different discretionary conditions in there, but I'm okay for the consultation document. I just I don't think it would ever be an exclusive list, and as was alluded to by Kat, is the DLC have the ability for discretionary conditions through there, but it will provide a good conversation point and some background for that wider community feedback, because it's the community feedback that's the essential part. Our tri-agencies that are, heavily their views and recommendations are in the documents, will always have a big part to play in the ultimate decisions that are made. So it's probably really good having those discretionary conditions listed so the community can have a wider conversation in terms of developing the LAP. But on that basis, I'm happy to move it.
Okay, so you'll note that we've changed after a discussion, claims Councillor McNamara for Woods, because Councillor McNamara lives near a licensed premises, so it makes sense. Have I got a seconder for the panel? Oh, Councillor Killamont seconded. So any other questions in relation to this? Because it's virtually, it's leaving it, there are only a few small changes from what I read indicated. Councillor Butler's got a question. Councillor Butler?
Oh, yeah. Hi. Good morning. Yeah, so I'm just wondering if Councillor Hume is prepared to do that, or I will if we need a Golden Bay person. We do have some, alcohol issues. So I should have checked that out first with you, Mark, but if need be, John, if you don't want to do it, I would be prepared to do it.
Well, it looks like Councillor Hume is happy to do it. So, Councillor Gully lets you off the hook.
Thank you.
Saves you a trip. That's all right. Yeah. Any other questions? Councillor Noi Bao.
Yes, I do have a question. Just for clarification, the buy now, pay later thing that we've got in that policy, that does not refer to purchases with credit card, does it?
Through the chair, no. Buy now, pay later is different. It's not credit card. Yep.
Well, it does seem to apply to some gambling where you are not allowed to use your credit card, so that's why I'm asking. Look, overall, I think I've made my views clear in the workshop. I'm 100% behind reducing alcohol harm. I do think, though, that when we look at this, we also need to look at unintended consequences. And in our district, there isn't an awful lot for young people. At the moment, it's a non-issue. I mean, if young people want to go out there, go to Nelson, because there's just nothing to do here. And I'm just a little bit mindful of the fact that we could be at risk of putting a policy out there that actually precludes any sort of nighttime economy to ever take place in our district, and I just want to put it out there that could be a risk here.
Okay, that's more of a comment. Councillor Walker?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Just for the record, I too sit on the DRC, so hence my name hasn't come forward. Just for the record. And my other one is around procedural. So I get who you've shoulder tapped and got in there, but I do think it's important that we let all wards have representation. So are we capping it at 4, or is there room for Councillor Gully to participate covering that? He has quite a vast area that he covers by himself.
He doesn't have too many liquor establishments, so I don't think there are problems. We've got somebody coming rural. I don't think we need an extra one. And the other thing is, if you have a look at the stats, the interesting thing was most of the harm actually happens between 8 and 9 o'clock. Yes. Yeah. So the harm from alcohol was early, so it wasn't late. So we can have another one if you feel a need, but I don't personally. I think it should be fine. Certainly, a Golden Bay councillor is rural, and the area for Councillor Gully is rural. Similar.
Then I'm happy to go on there if you like.
Yeah. What's the view of the room? I'm relaxed. All right. It doesn't matter if there's 5. So we'll add that. Okay. Any other questions in relation to this? I'm sure we'll certainly get, you always get good feedback from our local police and from the health, and they always tend to want even more restrictions to make their jobs easier. But it was interesting when you read the stats where the most harm happens between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night.
Yes, the Chair, the question I had was with the data. Some towns stick out more than others, and I won't comment on who they are because the data's there. Yeah. But is it done on a per capita basis or just events for the town?
Through the chair, it's just events for the town.
Yeah.
So with the area that you're talking about, they were overrepresented in terms of their population for the district. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the events per capita, and it's not telling that story. So perhaps my perception of some towns in the Rohe is inappropriate. Thank you.
Yep. All right. No other questions. I'll put that motion then with those names. So we've got an extra one on there. So we've covered every ward. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you for that. That was relatively simple. Ian, you're back. Have you got a map now?
Yes.
And your report? All right. So we'll go back to the catchment plan, and I'll go back to Councillor McNamara. How many questions have you got?
About 100. I did forewarn you with an email earlier on.
Yeah, you did, but you didn't say it was 100 questions.
So back to page 17 of our agenda, 17 of the document.
Yeah, sorry. Have you got the agenda? Yeah, that's not great. Right. So the date I believe you're talking about is the May 26 on the front cover of the document.
Yes.
That's the date of the document, not the photo. As
I suspected that may have been the case, but it sort of looks like it's a date of the picture, which is not correct. So
we can move that up.
we'll just clarify that somehow. And then on the next page, I note you have a beautiful picture of our no gravel extraction from the river, which is an accurate one. I'm not sure what we should be highlighting. What does it say? Okay, so on page 17, we have another picture. 19, sorry, can't see. On Brightwater, the green is extended into Factory Road and River Terrace. So being included in this thing, does that mean we're going to get stormwater there, or are we just billing people for stuff that's never coming?
Through the chair. As of today, we've got urban drainage areas that are where we're charging, and it's a interaction between the area we're providing stormwater services to and areas that have an influence on the operation of the stormwater service that's provided by council. The water services legislation that came out December last year is requiring council to relook at those. With the rating review, I understand yesterday that was confirmed that we'd not be changing the service areas at the moment. We need to do stormwater urban risk management plans where we'll have to review all of this again and look at which areas are benefiting from the stormwater service, which areas are influencing how it's managed, and rating for stormwater will be reviewed again over the next few years under that new legislation. So it's an active work in progress. In terms of which areas get served and to what extent they get rated for the service they get, all of that will be on the table over the next few years. We're not actively looking to change any of that immediately.
Which is unfortunate because we're rating people rather well for a service that we don't provide. They have to provide it themselves, and then they have to pay on top of that for somebody else's stormwater. Okay, but we're not going to review that anytime soon. Well, in the few years. Is that?
You've got an answer. Let's keep going. Well, he did give you an answer. He said it will be reviewed in the
Okay, we
future.
got an answer that I'm not happy with.
Yeah,
I
but
can't
you still
approve
got an
this
answer.
document.
Let's keep going, councillor.
I'll skip that one. Sorry. On page sorry. Yeah, jump in if you want.
All right. No? Okay.
Just, it's a similar question to Councillor Dean, is for clarity. In the way we manage stormwater, there's households that are being rated and we don't provide any service, but they influence the system. That's from what I've heard. So they influence the system. Will they be in the LTP, the 10-year plan, to go from influencing to have stormwater services?
Through the chair, I just cannot answer that question. The stormwater service area review under the new legislation will drive that decision-making process. there is several components that go into what the legislation defines as the criteria for the urban service areas. Not all of them are defined. A lot of it is around that stormwater network risk management plans that are a new requirement from December last year. The requirements of that are not fully defined. There's guidance scheduled to come out from both the government and Water New Zealand to guide councils in that area. Depending on the evolution of the water entities, that is obviously at the moment we've chosen a business unit with the government's announcements of regional council changes and so on. There's a lot of uncertainty in all of that, which influences how we do things, and that then ties into the rating, because I understand that while we're a business unit, rating can stay as it is, but a CCO needs to move away from land value-based rating. Exactly what we'd move to is another open question at this stage. So, sorry, far more questions than answers.
Okay, so my last question. Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, just in terms of the long-term plan, the answer is no. I guess the one thing that I observe about all of the stormwater networks that the council manages, all the drainage areas, is they have highly variable levels of service. In the previous catchment management plans, for example, ones in Richmond, all of Richmond is treated the same. There are highly variable levels of service within Richmond in terms of the drainage system that provides and the protection they get. Same for Motueka, same for Brightwater and Wakefield. They all have varying levels of service. Some have only secondary flow networks, some have only primary, well, barely primary level networks. They all treat the same. So I just observed that, you know, the kind of work that Ian has forecast is not an easy thing to do. And for the purposes of the LTP that we're doing at the moment, I'm not anticipating that there would be radical changes to the urban drainage area. Anticipating the work that Ian's talked about longer term and forming a longer term discussion around the way stormwater is charged.
So,
you,
my
Councillor
question
Morgan.
was following from that discussion. Is around, I mean, we've got insurance companies that are potentially exiting the market. TDC, Crown, potential insurers of last resort. I'm particularly interested in how the engineers look at this world where there is high risk and we don't have the service provided, that the risk falls on the community with households. So in the planning process, I think in terms of information, where we don't have renewals, where we haven't put the infrastructure in, we really do need a sense of the risk. Because that risky areas could be a priority for council. Perhaps you could comment?
Yeah, probably through the chair, Michael here, Goldingham Infrastructure Planner. Yeah, it's a brave new world that we're entering, and basically the legislation sort of backing up that brave new world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's probably bits that are still moving in this, and so yeah, that's that next bit of work, is to actually put all this together and see how it all comes out. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll go to Councillor Norbauer and then Kinamot, and then back to Councillor McNamara.
Thank you very much. Well, the Urban Catchment Management Plan refers to water-sensitive urban design principles quite a bit. So those require, would include things like surfacing streams, limiting impervious areas both in our public space and private space, swales rather than pipes, rain gardens, tree pits, those sort of things. Is there anything in this plan that actually incentivises these sort of principles to be implemented?
No, is the short answer. It's not the capacity of this plan to incentivise, as most of the action that flows out of development is going through a consenting process. It's through the plan. I'm aware that in Plan Change 81, that there's the urban design criteria that Jeremy's team have put together, which I believe is aiming at incentivising particular types of behaviour. From the engineering side, it's much more a definition of minimum standards. So the Land Development Manual sets out what the engineering minimum standards are, and the incentivising role is sort of outside our area.
And through the chair, guess what? There's more work happening in that space, in the water space as well. There's the National Engineering Design Standards getting worked on now by central government, and they may come into this space. We haven't seen them for 2 or 3 years. There was a little bit in this space. It'll be interesting if they're looking at that a little bit further.
Okay. Councillor Kittimont.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you. This is a huge body of work that's going to take some years to get through, I presume. Like 3 to 5 years, would you suggest that?
There is, within the catchment management plan, there's suggestions of areas for further investigation that will be controlled by funds and staff availability to do those investigations. Given all the other things that have already been discussed, it's very hard to say.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm just trying to get the extent of the magnitude of it. Tallynorris Place, Tallynorris Road, Brightwater?
Yes. So
that's included in this review?
No, it's a good example of a known issue, and for the other councillors who aren't aware, the short story is there's a culvert on a rural area that it's not a main flow path. Occasionally in large events, the water goes along the rural drain. There's more water that can get through the culvert. It spills out and then impacts a house or two. I'm not exactly sure. The issue is that it's outside the urban drainage area. It's therefore the culvert is adequate for the road's function. It's not adequate all the time to protect all the houses, but that falls into the general river rating area rather than the urban catchment management plan.
Thanks for clarifying that, Ian.
Councillor McNamara.
Yeah, thank you. So just going back to Staff Member Fletcher's point about imbalance between service delivery and, say, Richmond, but what we're looking at here is the Brightwater Wakefield policy, but that money is pulled in the greater scheme of things to go to Richmond. And as we will get to, that's where it's going, because it's not going into the Brightwater Wakefield area, it's going away, which is why I object so much to people paying for services that they're providing themselves, plus this tax on top that's not even being spent locally. That's an issue for me. However, on page 30, we're talking about groundwater quality and the Health Ministry advice about our high levels of nitrate. Am I correct that the government is also looking at this in terms of a reduction in acceptable nitrate levels?
Through the chair, I'm not familiar with that. I'd say the environmental scientists would need to be answering that question.
Certainly a comment in the news media this week, which you obviously picked up on in relation to that, but it was it came out of what's happening in Norway, as I understand it.
And it may provide a significant challenge for us if the numbers they're talking about become what we're working to. So on page 31, note 3, there's the potential for future stop banks to protect the towns from the Waiti and Wairoa rivers. They'll be investigated. So you're saying this could be 10 years away, or the stop bank we're investigating?
That would, through the chair, under the Rivers Activity Management Plan, the Rivers Manager will make that decision.
Okay. Just below that, we have a Wairoa and Waiti rivers heading. We have a part of a paragraph. We have a picture Then we have another part of a paragraph that goes, the Wairoa and the Waiiti are the receiving environment for stormwater discharges from the UDA, and therefore we need to work. I fully agree.
I'm not sure of the question there, sorry.
I'm
if I-
asking, is that
Yeah.
what we are
I think
saying?
there's a formatting issue we just need to resolve. Thank you.
Well, it appears
Thanks for the
there's,
feedback. On page 31 or page 15 of the report, there's a formatting issue. It's truncated a paragraph. So we need to understand what the rest of that paragraph would be.
In the printed version, it doesn't have the same.
Oh, do you mind
issue.
reading out what the paragraph is in the printed version?
Yeah, so obviously, yeah, I can see on your version, it's a problem that the one I've just printed doesn't have that, so I'll make sure that's fixed in the final.
can we know what?
So what's the
what
rest
we're
of the
doing?
sentence?
So therefore, we need to work to reduce the impacts of the urban area on downstream river water quality.
It follows over. So basically, what's
formatting
happened
issue.
here in the agenda, it goes to below the picture, and then it goes to the top of the next page. Is the wording?
In the agenda, I couldn't see it.
Yeah, top of the next column, is that
Yep,
correct?
top of the top of the
So
next
it's on
column.
the same page.
So it
Go
goes
to
down
next
to the
column.
bottom of the page, and then goes still on the same page to the top of the
Just
next
for
column.
clarity, this is not happening in the printed version,
Right.
so that the
Well, I
public
hope not.
version is not that, but it's happening in the
Agenda.
rendered version, which will.
Oh, God. This is very frustrating, these computers. Sorry, every time I touch my screen, it goes for miles. It's not. Oh, we. So, page 33 on my document, we're talking about the network varies in size. It's on the right-hand side above the picture. We're designing it to manage the 10% AEP plus climate change flow. What is the climate change flow based on?
Through the chair, we're working on RCP 8.5 plus in 2130 is the technical answer. Practically, that means about a 40 to 50% increase in rainfall. There's a national rainfall guidance system called HIRDS, High Intensity Rainfall Data. That's scheduled for updating any time now. We expect that to say we should be planning for even greater rainfall. We're working on RCPs, which there's a couple of international climate change reports behind. They've moved to social pathways, and I've heard a rumour that the new ICC report's going to move to a new system of categorising what the future holds. So we have adopted a future date which the hydrologists have then assigned a rainfall to, but it is a choice that we've made, like saying we're going to design for the 1% event. That's an arbitrary choice, and we could be directed by government to change that, or we could change that ourselves at any time as to what future rainfall we are designing for.
Well, can I suggest that designing to a RCP 8.5 that has been debunked as climate alarmism is probably not something that I'm comfortable approving. That's why we've got a...
Did you email your questions through to the staff?
No, because there's 400 of them. And
Well, it is standard that it makes a quicker meeting if you do that.
well, I didn't understand. Anyway, it would be a back and forwards discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like we have included in this document pictures of RPC 8.5, which again would be scaremongering. It is scaremongering because that is not a valid. You can go and look. They've thrown it out. It's not a valid model to be working from. Which is why we've got Garage 400 off the ground in the middle of Wakefield. If the water gets to that level, the proposed Wakefield hub would be about 2 metres underwater. So on page 40, in the table 1.4, we have our objective is to provide for public access, amenity and connectivity along our urban stream network, creating green linkages connecting our hill country to the sea. What does that look like for private landowners?
Through the chair. Today, anything that can be possibly negotiated under our stormwater risk management plans that we have to write, it's very much the government telling councils that they need to start stepping into people's backyards and managing overland flow risks, critical risks to the network, and that may involve us seeking easements over problematic areas. It may involve access for maintenance. It may therefore, or potentially purchase, we may be starting to look into private areas more. At the moment, we don't have the power, I understand, to require anything over the private land in terms of public access. It's only under the Rivers Act, critical maintenance activities where it's a current risk to other people would have the authority to actually get in there and do something.
Did you have a question on that?
Yeah.
Well, it's easier if we stop at a point.
Well, you should have emailed your questions through.
Oh, I can carry on then. I don't mind. It's fine.
No, well, I'm going to go. I don't know that you'll get more questions. You've had a fair go. Councillor Fernie-Hoff? Oh, that's all right. I'll deal with it.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would just like to make a comment that having resilient infrastructure in the ground means that we are looking forward and we are looking at climate change. If we have a voice on the table saying that we're not believing in that and we don't want to plan for that, I will be the voice saying that I do believe in that, and it is responsible governance to be future planning and future proofing our sites. For this particular paragraph that was pulled out, could you give an indication of what the difference would be planning for the 8.5 versus what would be the next one below?
Sorry, no.
Well, again, I do think that it's responsible planning to look forward. We have quite a bit of data coming out saying that we are going to see increased rainfall events, and not planning for that, frankly, I think is irresponsible.
That's a view. We'll keep going. Councillor Neubauer.
Yeah, just very quickly on the same point. We do have a climate change advisory committee, and I would suggest that committee provide some clarification on the use of RCP 8.5 as a standard for predicting rainfall intensity and frequency in the future.
Councillor Kittelmont.
Thank you. Through the chair. Is it not true, Ian and Michael, that most of the problems are on private property, and gaining access to private property and getting the property owners to agree to understand the problems that we've got because of what's happening downstream or upstream of their property, that's one of your major blockages to getting this done? I think there's a nod there to say that's yes, that's the answer to my question.
Councillor Morgan?
I need to discuss that matter about the issues being on private property. What I'm trying to understand through this, what are our actual strategic priorities, whether it be river management, stormwater and the likes? Just commenting on Councillor's comment that it's private citizens, we could suggest when we cover land, we remove absorption, natural absorption, and actually much of it's our own promulgated problem that we've created. And in Richmond, as we've been advised, there's no stormwater management at all in some areas. So, obviously we need a plan, but we should be very clear where the risks are across the landscape, because they may be as a priority to address, as I've said. But one of the issues is, have we got a view on removing gravel out of our rivers? And it's a practical issue that needs debating and needs a policy.
It's not a matter for this committee today.
Well,
and we've got a workshop scheduled with the rivers.
Oh, we've got that noted for discussion, rivers again, have we?
Yes. Yeah.
And gravel extraction.
It'll be part of the rivers workshop.
Very good, Mr. Chair. I look forward to the discussion and resolution.
Right. Deputy Mayor Maurer.
Thank you, through the chair. It's actually really horrible sitting online because you miss half the context. But there's been a lot of maybes in the answers, which concerns me a little bit. In terms of the current metric that we are using in this policy, that is the one we are currently using. Is that something that we have ratified as a council, or is that something that staff have adopted as best practice? Can you just remind me?
Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that question. It was the standard that was used for the modelling when I arrived back at council. So the source of that I can't confirm. My broad understanding is each time the ICC produces a new report, the New Zealand government then considers that and issues guidance to councils. So my best guess is that's the latest guidance from central government.
And just one last question through the chair. If so, one of the options, if this doesn't get ratified today, then it will come back with amendments. I'm sitting here nervous that we've got ward councillors that have some issues with this document, and I would have thought they would have had the opportunity to iron them out before it came to the table. So I guess I will take the lead from the ward councillors in terms of your satisfaction, how satisfied you are with this document to ratify. But I'm at pain a little bit that we're having a lot of this discussion and unknowns, especially by our ward councillors. Sorry, at no specific body's fault, but
no, a point taken there. So this was out. This came to council September last year. The consultation document, and it's been out for consultation. So that's where we're in the process, just for clarification. So it has been in front of council before.
Right. Thanks, Michael.
Councillor McNamara, you've got another question?
Thank you, Chair. So did we receive feedback from the community?
Yes, we did. We've about half a dozen points of feedback, which I did bring to the meeting, if you want to look at that. They fit into categories like river impacts and gravel. The Waimea Inlet Forum raised the issue of sediment washing off into the inlet, which obviously the urban areas contribute to, but not in a significant way compared to the rural areas. Then we had the community identify a few areas of nuisance flooding that included around the toilet block that in Wakefield there, and that area. And there's a few areas in Brightwater that I wasn't aware of, and looking back at the flood mapping, yes, our mapping does indicate they are areas. So we've added all of those points to the investigation list for staff to look at potential solutions. I think it's worth mentioning now that at the moment we're working on the stormwater strategy, which prioritises flooded floors for remedial work. Overall in the district, we have very few flooded floors. we have very few areas that really are of high hazard. We have lots of nuisance flooding that under the current strategy hasn't really been targeted for remedial work. There's a small budget that goes towards that, but potentially if the next review of the stormwater overarching strategy, we could adjust that balance to be looking more at sort of the nuisance level flooding that is on people's minds more on a day-to-day basis.
So a process question through the chair, but I thought that when we went out for our consultation that all came back to council to consider before we approved a document.
My understanding is it can be adopted into the document before we see it, but I'm not sure of the process.
Well, you're questioning my process about asking questions in the meeting, not before. Well, I'm sorry, but we had 1,000 pages to read. Do you want emails of 1,000 pages worth of documents every week?
The agenda was 400 pages.
This one?
Yes.
Then there's a workshop after it was 700 pages. There was a 700-page one yesterday, and the day before, and then tomorrow I've got more. So here's where I'm at. Questions?
Through the chair, sorry, just to clarify the process. So the previous catchment management plans, they haven't had hearings panels, and so we followed a practice in the past where staff incorporated feedback and reported to you and made recommendations. So just letting you know that I do know that for many of our consultation processes we have a hearings panel, blah blah blah. The catchment management plan's been quite technical in the past. We haven't, and that's been accepted practice by council. If you want to change it for the future, then we can do so. In terms of the to potentially head off some of the things, for example, that Councillor McNamara are raising, I do just want to go back to the point that Ian made. The demands on the stormwater network are vast, and there are very few parts of the district, other than the new development areas, that would meet our standards in completeness. And the stormwater strategy did prioritize, as a practical reflection of that, the stormwater strategy prioritises flooded floors. And to give you a real sense of this, when we did the Motueka catchment management plan, there is a lot of nuisance flooding in a lot of Motueka. And the feasibility of addressing that and bringing up to our modern standards was huge. I mean, essentially you'd have to establish a new primary network and a lot of secondary flows, which I'm not entirely sure how you would achieve it. The previous catchment management plan for Motueka, for example, looked at canals and new channels and drainage systems and stuff like that to do so. So I just want to stress that none of the catchment management plans have contemplated upgrading any of our existing towns to our current standards. They have focused on where flooding will affect properties, and by that meaning flooded floors for the most part. So to the extent that this whether it be Factory Road, which does have stormwater infrastructure in it, that is managed and serviced by council, or elsewhere, it is very common in these plans that we don't achieve the standards level of service. For future planning and for development, the 100 years level of service and stuff, that's all in our engineering standards. It's our aspirational levels of service, but it's cost prohibitive to try and achieve that everywhere.
Comment on this level, sir. It's through you, Mr. Chair. Just comment on the levels of service. So our approach to stormwater isn't a connection to every house. There's a range of mechanisms we use to actually manage the stormwater, and it's every from the natural drains, creeks. It's individual connections to houses. It's also overland flows, whether that is the roading network or the footpath network. It's secondary flow paths through private properties, and also the pipe network. But we're well behind. I mean, I think it was about the 60s or 70s is when we first started putting stormwater systems in. So a lot of the older parts of the towns were developed without stormwater systems, and houses just discharged to ground. So now we pick up those discharges and run it off from property into open drains, into the roads, and then duct them into a stormwater pipe where we can.
Right, so what I'm going to propose is that we leave this to lie on the table, and the 3 ward councillors could meet with the staff to go through all the issues that they're concerned about. Because then I think you might
Could I just respond to that briefly before we go?
Yeah, but do you think that's the solution?
That's fine. You say it's cost prohibitive for council to deliver that level of service, but we were requiring people to build to that level, which is also cost prohibitive. For example, the Cool store that was going in on Factory Road had to put in their own stormwater retention system and pay $100,000 or more in stormwater levies. That's cost prohibitive. So,
through the chair, I guess the scale I'm talking about is hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to upgrade our towns to the primary and secondary level of service. Yeah.
Well, that's not the. I think the solution for this today is the 3 ward councillors are happy with this because it's their area. We'll leave it lie on the table so that you can talk with the staff and go through the issues that you're concerned about before we bring it back to the next meeting. Thank you. I think that's a solution, and that's what I propose to do. Okay. Thank you, Ian. There's a bit of work to do, and if the 3 councillors could set up a meeting with the staff, I think you're going to need a good hour or 2. Councillor Woods?
Just a question through the chair. Does that preclude any other councillor that has an interest in this topic?
No, if you want to attend, but the interest is mainly the 3 ward councillors because it concerns 2 of your towns in your ward. Right, we'll move. Well, I'll move that we leave it to lie on the table. Are you happy to second that, Councillor McNamara?
Second.
We leave it to lie on the table so the ward councillors and other interested councillors can meet with the staff just to discuss some of the issues that they've got. So that's the motion. You happy with that, Kelsey? Yeah. All right, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, now we'll move to the draft community occupancy policy and guidelines. And I note that this again is going to be put out for consultation and there'll be submissions in a hearing, and the hearing panel is the whole of this committee. Right.
Hello again.
Morning.
So this draft policy, we've been through a number of workshops together and a couple of reports as well. It is responding to some long-standing inconsistencies in the lease and license terms, charging structures and maintenance responsibilities that have made for quite inequitable outcomes for a few of our community groups. The policy has been developed based on principles such as improving transparency of our processes, ensuring equity, and most of all being consistent in our practice, and while also recognising the significant benefits that these community groups bring to the region. Some of the key features of the draft policy that we are proposing to move to a gross lease model, and this will replace the current system of a cost plus, which is rental charge plus some inconsistent on-charging of rates. Standardising the tenure, which would generally be 5 years plus another 5 right of renewal. However, we do have a built-in exception for when community groups are proposing significant capital expenditure. We've also set out some clear maintenance and accountability requirements, and we propose that there would be some different settings for licences to occupy. We're proposing that these fees would be set at 50% of what the lease calculation would be, and that is to reflect the non-exclusive nature of the use of the land. A complete options analysis of all the options that we looked at, including cost plus, removing pan charges, is included in your attachment 3. However, we've worked through the gross lease model, which is based on the size of the building and the size of the land being occupied. And in the case of council buildings, also scaled for the condition of that asset. We are proposing that there would be a staged implementation, and none of this would come into effect until July 2027, when we have set our next schedule of fees and charges, and even then nothing would happen until the groups actually are ready to renew their leases, so nothing's going to change immediately. The main thing that I would impress upon you, I know we have the figures that we're running with in the report. However, these will not be set by the policy. We're including them as something to go by and an indication of what you've previously said you would like to cost recover. However, they will be set in the fees and charges later on. This is a good opportunity for us to put it to the community groups for them to see how this model would work in practice, but we're also welcoming their feedback on how that level works for them. But we'll be getting some early feedback essentially ahead of the fees and charges. We have 5 different community drop-ins planned, which the appropriate ward councillors have been invited to attend, rather than having a formal hearings panel, and then the entire committee will be able to deliberate as a whole when we come back to the committee. The consultation is proposed to run from 29th of June. I will just note that I've changed the ending date to the 9th of August just to give a couple of days over the weekend as well, which is different to what's in the report. Happy to take any questions.
Well, I'm sure there'll be several, but we'll start with Councillor Kittermore.
Thank you. Thank you through the media. I'm happy to move. We need to convey to our existing lessees what our intentions are with their own agreement. Now, I know of some who have lease agreements that have expired. So do they continue on paying their lease agreement, or do they wait? I think the other thing too is way we actually promote this with our lessees is going to be huge, because they are a good ambassadors for our assets, our buildings. They look after them, they maintain them. So my question, I suppose, is we're not looking to implement this agreement till 2027. That's a long way out. Are we going to, in our consultation, can we truncate that at all? That's what I'm thinking of. I know there's a lot of agreements between now and then, but it seems a long way out. Can we truncate that time frame back a bit?
Through the chair, I'm not sure of the process that would be involved in adding something into the fees and charges outside its normal review cycle, but I can come back to you on that. Internally, I've had some conversations with the legal team around rolling leases that do expire. In the meantime, we can roll them over on a month-by-month basis so that we're not signing them up for another 5 years on the old system. And then, something else comes in within like a couple of months later. We want to move those groups over to the new system in July as soon as we can, if possible.
That makes.
So just again, through you to Chair, just to add, I mean, there's also, I think, a need for us to give the community organisations good notice of what's changing and give them time to be prepared for that change coming through. So so 27 was good from that point of view as well.
Yep. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for this. Man, it's been an education saying just how this is working and how everyone's on so many different things, and it's been a mammoth I don't know how you've managed to try and come up with some system, and it still has some areas that we wonder about. But can I just have some clarification? I'm just a little concerned about the consultation period. I understand that we want to get on and get this work done, but a lot of these groups are community groups. They're meeting once a month or once every 3 months, and it's a relatively short consultation period. Have we talked to the groups about whether or not this is enough time for them to be able to have discussions about that? Because I'm still not clear, and there's a group I'm involved with on council that's kind of a bit of an outlier, but as far as I'm aware, there's been no information. So how do they find out how this is going to affect their group in real terms? Because I'm still not clear how the groups are going to get out to that. And thirdly, what is our process for informing these groups that they can input back into this consultation? So can you just clarify some of that? Thank you.
Yes, happy to. Through the chair, I've been in touch with all the groups on our list. I've been ensuring that I have the correct contact information to make sure that I'm talking to the right person, that, you know, any emails that are bouncing, I've been in the process of sorting that out over the last month or so. I have, I think, 3 left that I'm still chasing to try and find that information, but I think sometimes, yeah, a little bit of sleuth work has been needed to track that down. So they've been told in broad terms a consultation is coming, and that I'll be able to, and that what the general principles of it are to basically address the inconsistencies. So most of them, the ones that I have managed to reach, are aware that this is going to be coming, and that I'll be able to share more information with them once we get the draft policy over the line. So there's, it won't start until the 29th of June, but and that would give 6 weeks from that date. However, yeah, they are aware that it's coming, and I'll be notifying them probably earlier next week, because I want to be able to put those community drop-in dates out there as soon as possible so that they can plan for attending that. If we get feedback that this isn't enough time, or maybe they want to have like some different times, like some online webinars or anything to, you know, outside usual business hours, anything like that, we'll address that as it comes. I'll wait and see what the appetite is for it, but we're not necessarily bound by any particular legislation. We don't have to lock this off and close at that date. It just means ultimately, it would just mean pushing the adoption out further. But we do have wiggle room for that if it transpires that we need it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kat.
Councillor Walker, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for the work that you've put into this. And yeah, it has been quite frustrating that there wasn't, for a long time, they've been very ad hoc, what we've charged and not charged. I guess my question is, dropping pan charges, which we have talked about previously, but I note from one group in Motueka, they've received a new thing which is called a water account. That's been activated already. Is this done through this process, or is that through another department in council?
Sorry, through the chair, it's not to do with this policy, but Rob may be able to speak a little more to what's happening in the meantime.
Look, I don't know the specific scenario that you're talking about. Pretty much all of the community groups have agreements which oblige them to pay for outgoings, which include power, water, pan charges has been the long-standing problem. Sometimes the rates for a particular property include something that hasn't been charged before, that's been on charge. But and it's what we're trying to do is be consistent, and that's where Kat's arrived at the gross lease model. The system that we have for recovering outgoings is imperfect, and you know, perhaps you can communicate with me later just to find out what's going on. It's you know, it's based on a spreadsheet. The staff change. As I say, I'm happy to look into an individual situation.
Thank you. I'll provide the account that we've just received. Through you, Kit, if I may. Sorry, Chair. I guess my feedback is that we've been through a very long process to get to where we are. I am concerned about our not-for-profit groups, because they sit in contestable funding rounds all the time to keep their doors open. The longer that we give them the chance to actually realise that their leases, their occupancy charges are going to change, the better it is for them to actually stay sustainable and working within our wider community. So even though I might have a councillor across the room that says get money now, I'm saying let's consult really well. And can you please let the ward councillors know who in our communities that you've actually sent dialogue to? Because I'd hate to think there was anybody left out and they found out through another means, aka an account coming.
Are you happy to second?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. That's it. Yeah. No. Good. Councillor Neubauer is next. I've got.
Thank you. Look, consistency and standardising these policies and processes is really important, and it must have been a hell of a job to get there. So, yeah, my greatest respect for that. I was under the impression that the outcome of this would be financially neutral. Looking at the table on, what is my page, 359, it's got a 43 over it. It talks about financial implications and likely impacts. That seems to suggest that in the past we would have had a higher income from the leases than we would recover under the new proposal. Does that mean we're going to see less user pays and more subsidisation by the general rates?
Through the chair, essentially yes. So when there was a confidential report on the financial implications in March, so we initially had some feedback in a workshop that we should maybe try and recover a similar amount to what we're recovering at the time, but maybe just distribute it differently. When we did that, there was still quite a big jump for some of the groups that haven't been paying particularly much at the moment. So theoretically, we could have then tried to base the formula to try and equal the 96,000 roughly, I think, that we had in the last financial year. However, there was, even with the numbers as they are now, I think there was quite a bit of discomfort around the room about how much that increase was going to be for some of the groups, and sort of predicting that, I didn't raise the formula any higher, just to see where that landed, and the councillors or the elected members at the time were comfortable with where that was sitting, so I've left it there. It is just being put in there as a placeholder essentially at the moment. Ultimately, when we adopt the fees and charges, that's when you'll have that discussion about how much you want to cost recover, how much you essentially want to subsidise these groups to ensure their longevity, their sustainability. So that, it is relevant to this policy, but it won't actually, that part of it and how it operates won't get decided until next year.
Okay, I've got more people. So first I've got Board Member Dixon, then Councillors Morgan, McNamara and Kitamont.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just a quick clarification, Kit. Does this lease occupancy, cover volunteer community hall committees, like council-owned community halls?
Through the chair, no.
No. So even if they're sort of lease, running, as a community facility that has income from groups that use it, that's not within the scope of this.
No, that's through the chair. That's not within the scope of this, unless they've got a community lease or a license to occupy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Morgan.
My question was for clarification. So this is in regard to TDC land we own with community license to occupy on and or reserves. Is that correct?
Through the chair, a lot of these community groups are operating on reserves, yes.
Yeah. So the policy, if we were to be charged a commercial rent on a reserve, does the policy allow reallocation of that?
Sorry, I'm not entirely clear.
It's simple. I'm on a reserve, I'm a community outfit, and there's a rent having to be paid for it. Are we going to pass that on to the community group? I'm just wondering if your policy allows for it. You may need to think about it, that's all.
Yep. My reaction.
I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair.
My reaction is no. I don't think it does. My reaction to that is I don't think it does. We've set a sort of a gross lease basis for charging to be consistent. What we've tried to do is avoid situations, many of which we currently have, where the amount we're charging different groups is inequitable because of the status of the land that they sit on, amongst other things. And so we've tried to be agnostic about the type of land that they sit on, and try to treat everyone kind of on the same basis, regardless of the land status.
The same basis, you're agnostic about it, is what basis? Is it market? Is it, what is it in your policy?
Through the chair, the basis for where the fees are set, it's not based on what we might get if we were to.
So it's not market.
No, it's not. It's not at market rate. It's basically the formula works to try and recover just over 70,000, and it was sort of like adjusted to.
Well, I'm suggesting you need to think about that so that your policy can address potential future situations. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, we'll move on. Councillor McNamara, you had a question, and then Kiramont, and then I'm going to put the motion.
Thanks through the chair. 5.52, section B, financial obligations of the subleasees should not exceed those of the head leasee. And then in C, profits from subleasing must benefit the community in some manner. How are they making the profits if they're not exceeding the original lease?
Through the chair, perhaps the profits might be the wrong term to use there, but the funds that they're generating through subleasing must go back into the group.
Might want to look at that then. It's not how it reads. And I have a bit of an issue with the way these things are written, to be honest. Page 383. Community groups will be assessed against the eligibility and assessment criteria as per the policy and guidelines. The council will assess the applications against the policy to select a suitable community group. The council will assess the application in accordance with the policy and lease. I mean, it looks like it was written by Claude. The repetition and wordiness of it doesn't appear to add anything to the. You scroll down a bit further. Council will consider the questions below as a guide as to whether the application aligns with the guiding policies of the principles. I mean, it's not easy to read this stuff.
Through the chair, that may be a result of, it went through quite an extensive legal review, and so perhaps some of the tone of it might be seeing some of that reflected in it. But noted, we will, we'll be coming back with deliberations, so potentially there's an opportunity to streamline some of that language.
Good to hear that it's coming back. Also on same page, the council may take into account. Somebody hasn't correctly read that one.
We'll certainly get that checked.
And where are we? On page 392, there's a pros and cons table in blue. It says the number of pans has not been validated and would be difficult to ascertain. How do we not know how many pans are out there? What?
Through the chair, in some of the records, it can be a little bit difficult, but that's mainly an issue where you've got multiple groups occupying one rating unit, and so you might know that that entire rating unit has, 15, 16 pans, but you don't necessarily know like how many are in each of those buildings. There's also septic tanks in some of them, and even just eyeballing it to look at, I wasn't convinced that some of our own records were correct. So hence another reason to want to pull away from directly charging based on pan charges or the rating, to make it completely independent from that.
I can understand that, and through the chair, it's a little bit concerning though that we don't know. Like, are these not council assets? These are their own assets that we don't know what's going on with them.
Okay, I'll move on. Councillor Kiramont.
Can everyone two more?
What, two more?
on page 393, the table below shows how many of the groups that we current would be eligible for which rates. Rates that could apply, and then there's a list of 100. Like, do we know the impact of that on these 17 groups?
Through the chair, so when I did that exercise, I was basically looking at the valuation parcel for where each of these groups was located and identifying if we were to do a true cost plus and on charge everything, some of these groups are getting, a whole myriad of different rates. Some of them are only getting service charges. And so it was kind of to try and illustrate that there is an inequity in using a cost plus model because, depending on the rateability status of the land, that could vary quite significantly. I think in the previous, it might have been a workshop or it might have been the confidential meeting, I was talking about the difference between two very similar groups. One of them only had service charges and one had, maybe 8 other rates on top of that as well. So that was just to kind of illustrate the difference there.
Yeah. I support what you've had to do. It's a very complex area to work in historically, because I've got 2 similar groups in my ward that are both treated quite differently, and they know it. So to get that resolved in time will be great. Councillor Kittelmont, and then I tend to put this. You have one question left? You said you had a teeny one.
I've got 2 little questions through you, Mr. Chairman, sir. First of all, Kat and Rob, there's a hell of a lot of work going on to get to the stage here, and I appreciate what you've been doing because it's been a minefield, and thank you for what you've been doing. I want to pick up on what Councillor Walker said at the very end of her speech, that be handy to have a list of all the places that you've talked to so far. So I wasn't too sure whether you were going to send that out or not, so I'd like to have confirmation that a list could be sent to the councillors.
Through the chair, yes, that can be done. In the previous, the confidential report, they did have the financial implications laid out for all of the groups. However, since that meeting, I've identified a couple of more, and there's also the groups that maybe are on infinity leases or maybe don't have agreements and should, and so they're kind of being dealt with separately, but I'll be making contact with all of them. So I can divide that up into wards and send that out to you so you know who might come.
Yep. And one, because I know he wants to have a cuppa, is you mentioned at the very beginning, Kat, that you had about 3 organisations you couldn't find contact for. Our councillors go around the community, maybe we can assist with names, so please feel free to use the councillors.
Thank you, I will.
Okay, so that's all the questions that I've had. As again, it'll be great to get this resolved. Have you got another question, Councillor Morgan?
Yes, my last question through the chair was, obviously we're getting on, pulling this still together and getting on top of it. What's the future system we will use in Tasman in terms of community groups using these lands for community purposes and getting on our system so we don't lose them? I was wondering what your thinking was there.
That process is set out in the policy. Basically, when a community group can approach us, or maybe we find that we have a piece of land that we would put basically out to the community, saying that we are looking for applicants to occupy if we've found an appropriate piece of land for that. And there's a process that's set out, both in the policy and the guidelines as to what would go through that to be included here.
So they go onto a register of some form, do they?
Yes.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, you've already had a number of questions. I know that. Righto, Councillor, you've got one last question.
Just a clarification. And I think that's how I understood Councillor Morgan's question. I just want to, it's a complex issue. The same community facility in, say, Tapawera, where land values are relatively low, property values are relatively low compared to the centre of Richmond, for instance. If we had a similar comparable community facilities, facility, would the cost be the same, or would it be reflective of the higher land value?
It would be the same. There's absolutely no tie to commercial value. And commercial value, I think, can be quite difficult to determine when you're talking about a reserve. We can't really do a lot with it commercially. So trying to give it that value is a little potentially arbitrary.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'll put the motion. It's moved Councillor Kidamot, second Councillor Walker. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now, we've only got one more item. We can do that and then you can have a long lunch. All right? Because there's only one more item. So that's the review of the policy on giving consent to fly unmanned aircraft over council land. So we'll do that because it's relatively straightforward and there isn't a lot of alterations as from previously. If people think it's straightforward.
Right.
Okay. Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Here we are seeking adoption of a revised policy. Under civil aviation rules, those wishing to fly an unmanned aircraft over land need to get the permission of the landowner. The council is a very substantial landowner, and so we do need a process to consider and decide whether to give consent for flying these unmanned aircraft. The existing and the proposed policy enables people to fly over most of the council land without having to come and ask us specifically, as long as they comply with a simple set of conditions. For a small list of land that is perhaps sensitive because of the use of the other uses of the land or other reasons, we would require people to actually come and ask us on a case-by-case basis so we can consider those. There are relatively minor differences between the existing policy that's been in place since 2015 and the proposed new policy. I did just want to clarify what we mean by unmanned aircraft, because I believe I maybe led you astray a little bit when we had a workshop. So these are all covered under section 101 of the civil aviation rules. So unmanned aircraft are moored balloons, free balloons, remotely piloted aircraft, so that could be remote control aircraft and drones and the like, control line aircraft and free flight model aircraft. I think at the workshop I also included kites, rockets, gyrogliders and parasails. They are within section 101, but they're not unmanned aircraft. So just to be absolutely clear what we are talking about. So with that, I'm very happy to take questions.
Start with Morgan and then move up.
And Butler.
And Butler.
And then Green.
And then Green. Oh, this might not be as short as I thought.
Can we just get clarity on definition of council land?
I had taken it to be as I understand it, the rule is about people seeking the permission of the owner of the land. So in this case, I think it's land that council owns. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Look, I struggle with unnecessary rules, and especially if we already know that those rules will be hard to administer and really difficult to enforce. We are not required to have any bylaw here. We're not required to come up with these rules. There is some guiding central government legislation around this all. So I really wonder, why are we doing this? Why are we putting rules in place that we can't enforce, we can't administer, that basically doesn't make much sense to me?
So just for you, Mr. Chair, under the civil aviation rules, people who want to fly over our land have to come and ask us. So we can either have no rules whatsoever and no policy, and every person has to phone up and ask us individually, obviously, which inconveniences them and would take an enormous amount of our time and administration to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. Providing a policy enables us to, in a majority of cases, make that as smooth for both people who want to fly the unmanned aircraft and for the council. so the vast majority of land we're suggesting is in that category. There's, again, with some limited conditions, which we feel are appropriate and reasonable in the sort of situations of council land. In this case, there are a few areas where we think we would want to consider the specifics of what people want to do and the specific piece of land, and that's the residual. So I guess we're trying to make it, we can't avoid the requirement to provide permission in one form or another. We're trying to make that as smooth as we can. So that's, I guess that's my response to your
Through the chair.
criticism.
I understand that in theory, but the fact is, and you've noted it in your report, we would struggle to administer or enforce any of this. So why have the rule in the first place? I mean, whether that doesn't make any practical difference.
Mr. Fletcher's going to reply here too.
If it's okay, we, as Alan has pointed out, we do actually get requests for this, and not having a policy puts staff in a difficult position of potentially making a judgment call without any guidance on a request to allow a drone to fly. There are privacy concerns, there are health and safety concerns, and these policy and guidelines just enable staff to operate within some safety rails, so that they don't have to end up straying and making an inadvertent decision that puts council on the front page of the newspaper, or puts them in an awkward moral position.
Could I just add to that? I mean, the presence of the policy or not doesn't change enforcement ability. So regardless of whether we've got a policy, our ability to do hard enforcement is very limited. So as I think I've identified in the report, that the real kind of teeth for enforcement is with the police and civil aviation, not ourselves. Even where in other regulatory situations where we do have teeth, our first approach is to do education and I guess trying to use softer approaches to discourage people from contradicting the regulation. We certainly have that ability. We don't have the hard. We don't have any real teeth here in terms of enforcement, but that exists whether we have a policy or whether we don't.
We'll keep going. I've got 4 more wanting to speak. So Councillor Butler first, and then Councillor McNamara, Greening and Ellis.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair. This policy sends a signal, and while it's not completely enforceable, we do still have to have it. Disturbance to wildlife is a huge and increasing issue from the use of drones, and Department of Conservation actually do not allow unmanned aircraft to fly, or drones, they say, to fly over their rohe. So the risk to wildlife, particularly roosting, birds, maybe birds who are feeding, who have flown a long way, like the godwits, should not be disturbed. So I just would like to know if you could just elaborate the changes that have been made in the policy to actually protect birds on our coastal areas. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we in the existing policy, I think we say 20 metres away from people have to keep their unmanned aircraft 20 metres away from roosting birds. In the new policy, that's been increased to 100 metres, so it's a lot larger sort of buffer around birds.
Yeah. So on that basis, I'm happy to move.
Thank you for that. Councillor McNamara.
Yeah. So in the workshop, I suggested that we had a policy excluding landfalls, flying over landfalls. It's not in the list.
No,
so I won't be able to support the document. It says that you've got to get permission for flying over people, so you're going to encourage people to go into a working landfall to get permission from the people there before they fly overhead. It just doesn't make sense that as a controllers of a workspace that we're allowing people to fly drones over it. So, yeah, can't support the document.
Right. Councillor Greenie?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions and maybe a few for clarity for the general public. At page 405 of the policy, and when you read the purpose, it's all about going overland, but I'm just wondering if you could explain to me why we're using the word from or over. So the purpose was outlined as flying over, so I'm just wondering why we've added the word from.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Not for any specific reason, and maybe we should take the from out of that piece of policy.
Yep, fantastic. Perhaps the motion might need change to as amended then. Just again on 405, just looking at para C, I'm assuming that was deleted, but the para number was left in.
Again, for you, Mr. Chair, I did check that this morning. It's just a formatting issue. There wasn't actually an additional condition there. It's just the lettering's got mixed up.
Okay, so all the numbering will be recalibrated. The previous policy used to actually, in its heading, say over council land. Again, reinforcing the fact that this is a policy over council land. I just wonder if the new title should also reinforce that.
If elected members feel that's something to be added to for clarity, I'm very happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that would certainly improve clarity. At page 407, it refers to monitoring and some trigger points for monitoring. I'm just wondering whether there should also be an item about complaints. If we receive any complaints, that should also be monitored. Oh yeah, fourth bullet.
Yeah, so through you, the second bullet point talks about the number and types of complaints received.
Yeah.
Hold on. Give me one quickly change. Okay, sweet. Okay, that's good. Okay, I didn't quite see that sprinting through these papers. Fantastic. Okay, that's all good. And just one final question. So does this policy also apply to council staff who are operating off and across council land? We give ourselves permission, but we comply with this policy?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, it's not designed for council staff use, no.
Okay, so you're saying that this policy doesn't constrain what staff would be doing? Yep.
No.
Right. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thanks. Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those, it seems like such a minor thing in some ways, and then when you really delve into the subject matter, you really get a understanding of how diverse our community is, because for some people it's no big deal, and for others it's really quite major. I think it's really important that people can have quiet enjoyment of public areas. That, you know, some of us have issues with drones flying over our properties with no permission as it is. So good job trying to balance this. And sometimes the effects can't always be seen. I mean, I remember from the workshop when someone's raised the kites, you know, it seems like such a simple, why are we including it? And then just a few days after that discussion, you know, there was an incident where if everything had gone badly, that a kite, it could have killed somebody. So it is a real juggle, even though some find it funny. But I'm just wondering, in the policy, and it could be because I'm struggling with my technology, we talked about including areas of Motorola Rabbit Island, but then it's not in the list inside the policy. So have I missed something in between where it's not included in that policy summary?
In the policy, in clause 2 of the policy, where we list the bits of council controlled land that need where people need to seek permission, we have included under K, Rabbit Island, Motuara beachfront.
Where is that? Sorry, where is it? Because other lists, it's not included, and so everyone I've picked up, it hasn't been included.
So that's in the draft policy itself. I don't have the all page numbers, unfortunately. So.
And if there is an issue, I can.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you, through the chair. My question goes back to our workshop on the subject, where we did discuss the opportunity for bringing this up at a national level, the opportunity for consistency under civil aviation, and creating a national network of zones that council could put land under. Have we progressed that at all?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we haven't at this point.
Is it our intention? I thought we had general buy-in at this concept. I think it came through possibly to put a remit in front of LGNZ on this. And the concept being that someone who's operating a UAV can look at a national map of New Zealand and find these zones without, and we can adopt the zones inside our own district authority, but at a national level.
Yeah. Again, through Mr. Chair, very happy to work with elected members on such a remit if that's the desire.
So just on that, I'm not really familiar with the process of bringing a remit through to LGNZ, but I'm assuming someone in the room does. So if we could get that through, that might be positive.
Yeah, let's go through council. Councillor Morgan.
As has been said, it applies where the land is owned or controlled, except for the exceptions. What I was wondering was whether the council has any jurisdiction over foreshore and seabed, particularly from animals, birds' perspectives, if we do have any.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not an expert on land ownership, but my understanding is that we don't.
We don't. I was just, if we did, I'm looking at the more comprehensive approach.
Yeah, I mean certainly
from estuarine areas for birding.
Yeah,
there's issues around birding.
I mean, again, through you, Mr. Chair. So one of the issues one of the potential areas that was identified for, in addition to the list at the workshop, was around rotatai, and I had some conversation with Councillor Butler around that, and in our dog control policy, for instance, where there's quite a wide area that we prohibit dogs on, but actually a lot of it isn't owned or controlled by council. We have the legal ability to control dogs in that space, but we don't necessarily have the same ability to.
No, I'm just looking at the extent of the potential application, and yes, we're significant landowners, but clearly the Crown is in possession of a significant area of land, and there's other landowners that are significant. So I was looking at it, whether there could be a cooperative approach, particularly on coastal areas where there's bird issues. And we've seen that recently at Kaiteri with the management of the foreshore there. It's not through drones, it's through people and animals. Yeah, I mean, it's not, no one's going to observe this. So the practicality of it, and I can see where we're going, but I think it's a classic example of needing a more cohesive collaboration with key parties to get momentum on the policy, not the application of it, and a higher public sort of ownership, for want of a better word. Because I don't know what the drone flying is in our district. I'm sure we don't have the data on that. But a lot of groups are flying for land management purposes, all sorts of things.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair. So again, we don't have a lot of resource to manage this issue. As we've talked about, our ability to enforce is low, and certainly our staff time and effort going into enforcement is very low. If you want to get more proactive in this space, then there are resourcing implications to that.
Yeah.
All right, I've got-
Well, just my last comment, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think this is the issue around about the strategy of engaging with community groups that are in environmental works. We've got an entity emerging that's going to control from Maraho to Wainui. I mean, there's big changes happening. And the more we're connected as obviously the governing organisation, we can use other people's resources to implement a strategy like this.
Okay, that's a comment. We'll go, I've got 5 now on the list. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks for the work that you have done. It's interesting the scope of what you've come back to us with, because at the workshop you got a clear steer around obviously protecting the wildlife, and you've worked with Councillor Butler on that. I know that we had raised about the landfill units, and I'm wondering if there would be an opportunity to amend this so that the areas, 2 in particular, were included in this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so So through you, Mr. Chair, I certainly had some conversations with the landfill business unit around the use of drones over the landfill, and they did not express any concern around that. In terms of work sites, we have many, many work sites beyond landfill, and certainly we're not at this point prohibiting use over those work sites. But under civil aviation rules, people who are wanting to fly unmanned aircraft do have to seek the permission of the people over whom they are flying. So they would still have to do that.
Board Member Lusk.
Thank you. Through the chair, a bit of a policy wording question in relation to Councillor Morgan's question. And it loops back to Councillor Greening's observations. So the bit in the policy where Councillor Greening pointed out that there was the application of these rules flying over or from council land, I'm wondering if that policy write-up wasn't actually directly solving the problem pointed out by Councillor Morgan, because if we're talking about seabirds, if you're flying out from a council reserve, then the policy would still apply, and then that would. So I'm wondering if that would be the case. Thanks.
For you, Mr. Chair, not consciously in my behalf.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Tested.
Deputy Mayor Murray. And I'm still looking for a seconder. I've got it moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor
I'm
Ellis?
happy to see.
All
Happy
right.
to second. So I guess this is turning in how the workshop went, which is interesting.
Yeah.
No, the simplicity for the policy in terms of, do the staff have clear guidance from this table that we endorse to answer a request to fly over council land at a specific time? I don't know how many people ring or how many people don't ring, but I guess without this policy, staff are also making a call when somebody rings and asks this question. So this just gives them the guidelines to do it. But I do want to pick up on Councillor Greening, because I don't find anything in this policy that our staff couldn't follow. So I don't know why our staff are exempt from this.
Don't know why that what? I missed that. What did you say?
Mr. Fletcher, was someone going to comment? I know our river people use drones when they're doing river work.
But I can't see, sorry, through the chair, I can't see anything in the policy that would exclude them from doing that.
Yeah, well,
Through the chair, I mean, I guess the main observation I would make is that there are potentially, and I welcome Alan's comment on this, potentially places where we, in performance of our duties, want to send drones that we may not wish the public to as a right automatically, at least not without checking in on it with us, which would be us checking with us if we were included in the policy, which isn't the end of the world, but it's just codifying it here. So the example I was just chatting with Sue about was potentially we may wish to monitor the nesting sites of birds using drones. So we don't want to be prohibited from doing so. Welcome Alan's further comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, haven't given it a huge amount of consideration. I would be I would be uncomfortable if our own operations were vastly different from what we expected from the public. You'd anticipate that we would want to be demonstrating good practice in the way that we use drones so I'd be surprised if our practice was vastly different, but it wasn't really written with that perspective in mind.
Thanks, Alan. I'm happy to second, Mr. Chair.
Yep, that's good. Councillor Kittermont, you had a question?
Thank you, through the chair. A couple of quick ones. Under the exempt sites, Mapua Precinct and Wharf area, how far does the Mapua Precinct extend? Does it go to Waterfront Park and Kite Park?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. And we're really talking the commercial precinct area, the bits obviously that the council owns.
Okay. Kite Park, people do fly kites, umbrellas and UAVs there as well. So I just wondered whether you want to consider that to be included, as well as Dominion Reserve. It's not there. I'm looking at Mr. Smith over there that I think that should be added. That's quite significant there.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so I would have thought we wouldn't, if Kite Park, I mean, I don't know it well, but presumably, with that name, would anticipate people flying kites. So we wouldn't necessarily want people to come and have to ask us individually to fly kites. So that's why it's not on the list. So it's in one of those areas where we're offering general permission. Again, I'm not unclear of what reason we might have for wanting people to ask us specifically whether they could fly an unmanned aircraft in Dominion Reserve.
No, that's good, but I would ask that Dominion Reserve goes on the list.
So again, through you, Mr. Chair, for what reason would we want to add Dominion Reserve?
For the same reasons as you've got Heath Reserve, Research Orchard Road Reserve, Pearl Creek Reserve. They are specific reserves that for the bird life, to protect the bird life in there that are nesting, and it's a public. It was council land with public access to it.
Okay, I'm very happy to consider that. And in terms of the reserves that we added because of the bird life, I had some conversations with our experts in the field, particularly around the Waimea Inlet area, as to which of the reserves they felt were the ones that should be on the list, and that's why we have the ones that are currently listed and not other reserves.
So therefore, Heath Reserve is there because of the banded rail.
Again, it's there because I was advised by our bird experts that it should be there. I can't remember which species of bird applied to each of the reserves. I'm sorry, I'm not an expert on that matter.
Thank you, good answer.
Yeah, right. Councillor Ferniho, and I've got two more people and then I'd like to put this and move on.
Thank you, through the chair. It's a comment just stating we have three options. Adopt this new one, which from what I understand is actually going to improve council efficiencies, which seems to be something that many people around this table are constantly requesting that we do. And it also then is protecting some of the bird life. It is putting in a few more parameters around where and when people need to ask permission outside of the blanket permission that again is saving time, staff, money, correct? Or we can retain what we're already doing, which we have to be doing anyway, but with every individual request coming through to council, or we can rescind the policy. And again, everybody who wishes to fly an aircraft still has to come to us, correct?
In general, you're correct. So certainly, one option is the new policy, and as you say, that helps us with efficiency. Another option is to keep the existing policy, so that's slightly different than the proposed policy. And the third option is not to have a policy at all. And in that scenario, people would have to come and ask for every single case.
Okay.
Sorry, in direct response to this, I still don't understand what this is doing. It doesn't make things more efficient. if I understand correctly, if we don't have this policy, the default position is you can't fly. Staff can be very clear, you can't fly. The landfill's protected. The birds are protected. The privacy is protected because you can't fly. If someone violates this policy of that national policy, we can't do jack. We basically pass it on to the police. If somebody violates our new policy that we're looking at now, what can we do? Nothing. It's the same situation. So what are we actually discussing?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think that is the case. I think if our policy is we're going to say no to everyone, then we need a policy to say that. If we don't have a policy, then on every occasion that someone wants to fly over our land, they will need to come and ask us, and we will have to decide whether the answer is yes or no.
All right, so you've had your answer. We've gone around this a lot. Councillor Morgan, you've got a quick question, and then I've got one from Councillor Greenie. Then I'm going to put it.
Yeah, I don't support it for similar reasons as Tim, but if council put in a policy like this, it'll in part meet potentially issues. We can't enforce it, but I could tell you there'll be a lot of landowners coming back to the council wanting to implement their policy on their land. So it's going to create more administrative problems than we think. And good on them. I would do that. If the council's going to have it, I'm going to apply a similar policy. You'll have to write to us.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, every landowner is in the same position that we are, that if someone wants to fly over their land, the requirement is for the person to come and ask the landowner. This already exists.
So,
and that's what currently happens. In the urban environment, retail sellers of property are the biggest users. They drone properties every day, and they ask permission if they're going to go across the boundary. So,
right. Councillor Green, you've got a question, then I'm going to put the motion.
Yeah, just the process. I'm just wanting to see the resolution because it was suggested that it might be revised to include the words as amended.
It has been done that.
I can't see it because.
Can you share that with Councillor Greenie?
Thank you.
Right, I'm going to put the motion.
Like a division, please.
A division's been called. Kelsey.
Councillor Walker. Councillor Neubauer.
Against.
Councillor Morgan.
Against.
Councillor McNamara. Deputy Mayor Maru.
For.
Councillor Kinnenmonth. Mayor King absent. Councillor Hume.
Against.
Councillor Gully.
Against.
Councillor Greening.
For.
Councillor Fernyhough. For. Councillor Ellis.
For.
Councillor Butler.
For.
Councillor Woods.
For.
Chair Mayling.
For.
Carried. 9-5.
Thank you for that. I think that is the end of our agenda. Thank you, Alan, for that report. I'll come to Sue for closing karakia. Please.
Kia heke te kōrero, kia wātia, kia mama, te manawa o te tangata. Kia utu te ara mō tātou in ora nei. Kia rauno, kia runa, kia tina. Humiei, hoiei, taiki.
Thank you, everyone. I think now we're clear till 1 o'clock. We can't move the workshop because it was advertised. Okay, so we'll see you.